Hi there, I'm going to show you how to service a HuMa regulator from a BSA Ultra SE Scorpion SE. There are other videos showing how to service the other regulators, although the principle is very similar. When you buy a regulator service kit from my online store, you should get the 4 O-rings which replace these 4 O-rings. You'll get an O-ring for the regulator piston, a smaller O-ring for the regulator piston, and then there's another O-ring for the little adjuster in here. So I'm going to take you through servicing it. You'll need a pair of circlip pliers to get in there to remove the circlip. There you go. That's the circlip, and then you can. There's a threaded hole in the bottom of the piston, which allows you to screw an M3 bolt into to pull the piston out in case you need to service it. The other option is you can, it's a bit more, less Fred Flintstone, but it's an option. You can bang it out. Obviously the better option is to use a bolt and then just pull it out. Right, that's the piston. As you can see, it's got a number of Belleville washers on it, or disc springs as they're also called, and then there's 2 O-rings. There's the small O-ring and a larger O-ring. In the kit, in this particular kit, it would be the middle size O-ring. So there's 4 of one size, then there's a sort of middle size, and then 2 the same size that are smaller. This middle size one fits in there, and one of the smaller ones fits in there. It's a good idea when you're taking the O-rings off, use a tool that is not sharp, that's not going to damage the face of the O-ring groove, because obviously if you damage it then it's not going to seal properly. And also just make a note of the way your disc springs are fitted. Depending on the pressure range of your regulator will depend on how these are stacked, and also what you may not notice with the naked eye is sometimes there are different thickness disc springs. So don't just go, oh yeah, 2 that way, 2 that way, 2 that way, fine, and rip them all off and then put them back on, because unless you actually take them off in their actual pairs and put them out the way so they don't get mixed up, and then put them back the same way, you could cause problems for yourself. So it's always best to just be careful, because sometimes they're not exactly the same spring throughout. Some models they are, some models they're not. You could measure them. I can't remember what this one is. Just looking at it, it looks like it's the same all the way through. So it's a low pressure stack. I'll just measure them. Yeah. Yeah, okay, these are all the same as I guessed. So yeah, just be aware of that. And you can use something like ABA's SM50 to lubricate the O-ring grooves. There is also, you can use things like silicone grease to lubricate your O-rings, and there are other O-ring lubrication products on the market. Anyway, once you've changed the O-rings, make sure it's all clean in there. And then this is the little plastic disc that that seals the regulator. Drop that in, make sure it's right down into the bottom of the hole, and then drop your regulator piston back in. Make sure it's clean and there's no fluff on the O-rings, because if there's any sort of dirt or fluff on them, they won't seal properly. So drop them back in, push it in, and then you need to pop this circlip back in. Your circlip pliers. This can sometimes be tricky. That one went in first time, thankfully. Just make sure the little circlip's seated properly in the circlip groove. Sometimes you think they're in and they're not, and then they can pop out. Right, now hopefully you don't need to do the second bit that I'm about to show you. like I said, there's another O-ring that we haven't fitted yet from the kit. There's one on the adjuster. Now, if you want to change the one on the adjuster, obviously the adjuster changes the pressure setting. So just bear in mind that if your regulators come set at, say, 100 bar, and you don't put it back in the right place, it may be no longer regulating, or it may be that your regulator shuts off at 20 bar. So getting this second bit right is critical. So I would suggest using something that's very accurate, like this digital vernier, to measure the actual depth of your adjuster. So there we go, 16.54 millimeters. I'm going to double check that just to make sure. 16.53, so somewhere there. Make a note of that, because you want to put the adjuster back to that exact same distance, not 16.4 something or 16.6 something, 16.53 as best as you can. Right, for this you need a flat bladed screwdriver. You pop that in and unscrew the adjuster. Keep going, you'll get to a point where you feel it's just spinning. You can then tip it out. Right, there's an O-ring on here. You want to replace it with the other small O-ring that's in the set. Make sure this is all nice and clean. Double check that your plastic disc is still seated correctly and everything's clean, no dirt or fluff or anything. Drop that back in, give it a little push so it engages in the threads, tighten it up, and then tighten it. And we want to try and get it back to 16.53 again. So 16.26. So I need to make a little adjustment. It's a very fine thread, so it shouldn't be impossible to do. 16.43, nearly there. There we go, 16.53. So I'm happy that that's gone back within a couple of bar of where it was originally set. And that's the regulator serviced. So it's ready to be fitted back into the rifle. The other thing is to note is that if you get it wrong and you've stripped it and it's just you can't get it right and the pressure is not right and whatever, it's not the end of the world. I do offer a regulator rebuild service where you send me your regulator along with the caliber of the rifle, the power, and the caliber. I will then strip the regulator completely, rebuild it, fit all new O-rings, a new plastic disc, and then I will set the regulator to the correct pressure and test it and then ship it back to you. That service is available via my online store on my website. So there we go, service your SE HuMa regulator.